So Nintendo just changed absolutely everything. Before it was just speculation, and now it pretty much confirmed that Nintendo will change the entire gaming industry, and not in a positive way. What am I talking about? I'm talking about the very soon launch of Nintendo Switch 2. You might think you know what to expect, but let's talk about the physical game situation, because people didn't think it was going to be as bad as it is, but it's looking pretty bad, guys, okay? Physical games aren't really going to be physical anymore. We thought it was going to be a few games here and there, a few games that are like closer to eShop titles, but that isn't going to be the case. So buckle down, we have a lot to discuss, and it's not looking so good. Before I jump straight into all the doom and gloom, I am a fan of Nintendo. I just don't like the direction that they're going in nowadays, and I just want to speak about it because what are they thinking? Because this isn't a situation that's just going to affect Nintendo. This is something that the industry is going to follow suit. This is not an isolated event. Nintendo are just the first people to put their foot in the door to make this happen. And because of this, this is going to change the gaming industry and gaming culture as we know it. Let's get straight into it. So, we know the Nintendo Switch 2 pre-orders are live, and that's a whole mess in itself. But physical games that you can go buy with the Nintendo Switch 2, well, they're not really going to be physical. They're just going to be game keycards. What do I mean by that? I mean you're going to need an internet connection to actually play the game. At least for the first time at least, because you need to download the game. The game isn't on the game keycard anymore. It's on Nintendo servers, and this is just a fancy license key. Yep, I know it's hard to believe that we're basically stepping away from actually owning the stuff that we buy, but it's basically just a license to play this game at this point. Depends how you want to think about it, but I don't know. This is a tough pill for me to swallow after, recent issues with Nintendo and how they tackle their online eShops and whatnot, because how many times have we seen situations like this happen where they don't really maintain their stuff for a long time? It's kind of going to have a massive effect on collectors and how we interact with games from now on, because now they just got us buying fancy download codes. And I mentioned the Switch 2 pre-order situation. That's because that situation is, well, it's a mess. It's a giant mess, and that's the nicest way to put it. It's gone so far that people are taking things into their own hands and trying to fight against the scammers in some of the most creative way possible. And if you want to know everything going on with that, make sure to watch this video over here, because I go in depth about that situation. Back to the keycard mess. Now, Nintendo's first-party titles, like the new Donkey Kong, will be on physical cards, the whole game included. But that's not the case for most of the games that are going to release on the console, such as most of the third-party releases. They are going to go the game keycard route, and everyone is worried what's going to happen when the servers eventually go offline. So is this really the future of gaming? Are we saying goodbye to physical games, or is there a silver lining here? We're going to dive deep into what games are affected, the pros and the cons, and whether this is a deal breaker for the Switch 2. So let's get into it. And make sure to subscribe if you like videos like this, talking about online topics and tech news as a whole, because I've been making a lot of them. Let's get back to it. What games are going to be affected? Let's highlight what games are going to be on the game keycard release, because we have quite a few titles confirmed, at least from some sources. So we have Rider Remastered, I hope I said that right, Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, Puyo Puyo Tetris 2, Sonic X Shadow Generations, Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster, Street Fighter 6 Year 1 to 2, Fighters Edition, and Hitman World of Assassination. Well, these are all confirmed to be shipping with game keycards. Now, that's a lot of titles and pretty big names, so it's not exactly ideal to hear that some of these big games are not even going to be released on physical copies anymore. They're just going to be a download code, essentially. You're basically buying a fancy piece of plastic to let your Switch download the game and just basically allow you to play it only when the keycard is in. So it's not even, you don't really get the benefits of a digital game where you can play it without the keycard. You still need the keycard to put it in. I mean, there are ways that I think Nintendo really should balance the deal with us, and I'll get into exactly what I mean in a moment, because I think we're getting the short end of the stick here. They're basically giving us less of a physical game, even though we're still paying the full price that we would have, whether the game was on the copy or not. I'll talk about what I think Nintendo should do towards the end of this video. But let's keep going, because this one really raises an eyebrow for me. There are games that are going to be on full physical cards. One of that being Cyberpunk 2077. Now, hold on to that name, because I'm going to come back to that, because that raises some weird questions for me. But keep going down the list. We have Rune Factory, Guardians of Azuma, Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar, big first-party hits like Donkey Kong Bonanza, Kirby The Forgotten Lands, and of course these Zelda games. So if you actually feel like owning something, those might be the go-to games at launch. Thank goodness Cyberpunk is pulling the weight at least. Well, someone has to. And let's talk about the Cyberpunk and why I mentioned that, because that raises a big question. At first glance, you may think, well, games are getting bigger. You probably can't fit it on a game cartridge anymore. But Cyberpunk is an absolutely huge game, and that's coming to the Switch too. If any of the games that was going to have a game keycard access, I would think it would be Cyberpunk. But if they're capable of fitting that huge game on a cartridge, why are they going the keycard route? There's just too many questions to ask. And I will talk about potential reasons why towards the end of the video, but you're going to have to bear with me. We're not going to do all doom and gloom. We're going to talk about some of the pros. Let's try to find a silver lining here. Nintendo argument, and the one echoed by some Nintendo defenders, because oh boy, there's a lot of them, is that these game keycards can be traded and resold, unlike a download code in a box. I mean, we already knew we could trade and sell physical games, which is what we are supposed to be buying. So saying we should still be able to do the bare minimum of the type of product we're buying it's not really a good thing. I mean, of course, we should be able to buy and resell these. If you didn't, then we're absolutely getting scammed in front of our eyes and getting away with it. But let's talk about it. So these game key cards can be traded and resold, unlike a download code, like I already said. But think of it as a pre-owned with extra steps. I guess it is better than getting a completely useless piece of paper, but then you can't legally sell that as a physical game. That would pretty much be illegal at that point. I don't know if I always see the logic in that one, because this is just a downgraded version. Something that a potential positive that people are saying is that it could keep game prices down, allegedly. I don't know if I believe that, but game cartridges are apparently more expensive to manufacture as opposed to cartridges and discs, for example. Maybe this will allow publishers to save a few bucks, and maybe, just maybe, those savings will be passed on to the consumer. But let's be real, how likely is that? Well, I'm not gonna hold my breath on it, okay? This is big corporations after all, and they'll take anything to make a buck out of you. And we've seen that time and time again. So I think that's just a bit of copium. Let's talk about the cons. And, well, where do we start? Let's talk about the real problem. Preservation. What happens when Nintendo inevitably shuts down these switches to eShop? Like in 10 to 15 years. Are all the games locked behind those game keycards going to be completely useless? It's not like these companies have a stellar track record of keeping digital storefronts alive, especially Nintendo. Remember the eShop channel? Anyone? Remember the situation with the 3DS eShop? Yeah, a lot of those games have pretty much been lost to time. Are we going to see the same thing happen, but to larger Switch 2 titles? Might not affect you now, but basically the bigger picture of things is saying that you're buying the game to play it in this short window. You don't really own the game, you own the license to play it. If anything, sounds like the situation similar to The Crew, and we have a video on that. If you want to watch it, go click on this after you watch this video if you want to care just how bad this situation can get. And it is really concerning for the future of gaming, because Nintendo's only the first person to put the foot in the door. Other companies are going to follow suit if they get away with it. It could be the end of physical media as we know it, and more closer to the digital landscape that they really want. And I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist. Everyone wants to say that moving towards a more digital approach basically means the corporations have more control over us, because, we just have to, use whatever they allow us to download and manage our purchases. For example, back in the day, you'd buy a game card and it would work forever, essentially. But now we're giving more control over to them. I don't know how skeptical you want to go, but I know some people are probably thinking about that route. Anyway, back to the game cards. So imagine buying a game and you're slapped with requires an internet connection to play. Yeah, that's a massive nope from me. What if you're traveling or your internet is down or you forgot to pay the internet bill like I did last month because I don't get paid enough from YouTube? Well, there you go. You're not going to be able to play your game. Or maybe we have a whole internet apocalypse. Yeah, I think that one's probably a bit of a stretch, guys, but who knows what's going to happen, okay? I'm just trying to prepare for the worst, okay? I need my Switch games in the apocalypse. What else am I going to do? Well, those physical games you bought are now just a fancy paperweight. At least in the zombie apocalypse in the good old days, you could play your physical games on a console. I know what console I'm not bringing with me to a Fallout, okay? And it's not the Switch 2. Let's talk about the potential strain on the eShop servers that's going to happen on launch day, because everyone's going to be downloading these games at the same time. So prepare for slow downloads, errors, and general frustration. It's going to be essentially a huge digital traffic jams of epic proportions. Honestly, Nintendo should offer hazard pay to their server technicians, because they're gonna need it. I don't think Nintendo will see this much server traffic on day one of a console's launch, if ever. I just hope they have preparations in place to counteract the potential disaster that could happen. It isn't maybe, but I could definitely see it happen, because if everyone's using the server at the same time, everyone's trying to download their new physical games, expect a mess, okay? I'm not exactly super optimistic about the situation. And according to Daniel Ahmed, all Switch 2 bundles come with a download code, and most games come on a game keycard and requires a download. He asked us all to pray for the eShop servers on June 5th. And honestly, I'm ready to start a prayer circle because I don't have faith in Nintendo at the moment. So we've established what is going on. Let's talk about where. Apparently, Japan is getting hit hard with these game keycards. Gematsu reported that almost all third-party physical games in Japan are using them. Yeah, that's a bit intense. It's like they're trying to phase out physical media altogether. And it's not just Japan here. UK seems to be following suit, with retailers like Smith's already listing several games with game keycard packaging. Meanwhile, in the US, Amazon showing similar trends, with Sega leading the charge on that one. So this isn't just a regional thing, it's a full-blown publisher decision at the moment. So remember what I said? We should be given something to compensate, because this is kind of just a net loss for the consumer. And remember they mentioned, I believe someone mentioned something about being more eco-friendly, which is basically a flat-out lie. Here's what I think they should at least do to give the consumer something back. Remember back in the day when you bought a deluxe edition of a game, it came with a nice steelbook case, with the game inside. How about do something like that? I mean, we basically got downgraded. At least do something to give us something of value when we buy a physical game. We want something physical at the end of the day, give us something nice like that. A nice, cool steelbook with a game cartridge, game key nonsense inside. At least that way we can display what we wasted our money on. And it's not just going to be a paperweight. I mean, it'll be a nicer paperweight, because the physical metal cases are really cool. We can display them, and I'll feel like I got slightly less scammed. And if anything, that will be, better for the environment. Because apparently that's one of the reasons Nintendo defenders are saying why game keycards are a good thing. Absolute nonsense, but whatever. And we also get to sidestep the whole game keycard is useless without the internet debate. Think about Nintendo. Collectors love this stuff. It gives more of a reason for people to go out and buy the physical game, even if it's not even physical anymore. It at least gives the consumer something to show that you care about them. Back to the point about the environmental impact. Game keycards are just more plastic. Are we really going to pretend this is the most eco-friendly option available? Just feels a bit disingenuous, don't you think? Alright, I will admit, there is one small sliver of good news. Unlike download codes that are tied to a single account, game keycards can be resold and shared. Think of it as a watered down of a physical copy. Well, if you want to think about it like that. So at least you're not completely stuck with a useless piece of plastic if you decide you hate your new copy of Bravely Default. But still, is it enough to justify this whole mess and ruining the gaming industry? Because physical games is a huge aspect of gaming culture. We're changing everything out here, and everyone's just letting it happen. People are just justifying Nintendo for giving us less for the same price, if not more. Why are we celebrating the fact that we can resell a partial game experience? The bar is as low as it can possibly get. Seriously, we're getting happy for the bare minimum here, guys. And talking of messes, have you guys seen the absolute mess of the Nintendo Switch pre-order situation? It's gone absolutely haywire. It's DEFCON 5 at the moment, with the Switch pricing already be a huge mess. However, it's not as bad as I initially thought it was going to be, but it didn't save anyone from actually trying to get their hands on one, because you can't at the moment. And if you want to know more about just how desperate people are going and how they're counteracting the inaccessibility of Switch 2 pre-orders, make sure to watch this video, because it gets pretty crazy. Some of the ways people are trying to get back at these scalpers is pretty creative. And I'll tell you right now, it involves PNGs and a printer. So make sure to watch that video if you need to have more Switch 2 news. But let's talk about the game keycards again. Christopher Dring from the game business hit the nail on the head when he said, ultimately, with fewer game retailers, rising manufacturing costs, and the fact that the younger generation honestly just doesn't care, plus the drive for sustainability, it all points in one direction for physical media. He's basically saying physical media is basically on its way out. Are we witnessing the slow death of owning games and physical games as a whole? Is this really the sad future of gaming? A future where you actually don't own anything, where you're just renting access to a digital file depending on the whims of the corporations and the internet infrastructure? If so, game keycards are just a huge stepping stone into that reality. And yeah, I'm not happy about it, guys. This is not the world I want to live in. If you think that's bad enough, well, Discord is also in hot waters, and you think the bad news just ends there. Well, apparently everyone is leaving Twitter in droves. I'm talking 3 million people just quit the platform. You want to know exactly why everyone is so angry at Twitter to the point where companies are pulling out? Make sure to watch this video, because the entire internet seems to be on fire nowadays. But hey, I don't mind. I get to make content. Alright, see you guys in the next video.